G'day brewers, Hendo here from the Rockstar Brewer Academy. In this video, I'm going to show you how to minimize dissolved oxygen pickup in your beers during a transfer from fermentation vessel to a bright beer tank using data as your only tool. Let's take a look. Okay, so here we have the Beer 30 dashboard, and as you can see, I've got my beer in FV245, the Kiwi liquor, which is marked as ready to filter. I've also got an empty bright beer tank, BBT 250. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer the entirety of FV 245 over to BBT 250. If I click start filter, you can see here that FV 245, the Kiwi liquor base, is the only beer that's marked ready to filter. And as you can see, BBT 250 is the only empty bright beer tank to transfer this beer to. So that's all locked in and ready to go for me. You'll also notice that Beer 30 is asking me for the FV dissolved oxygen. This is actually a custom field. And if we want to minimize the amount of dissolved oxygen pickup in our beer, we need to use our C box several times during the transfer process so that we can actually track where the oxygen ingress might be happening. So what we're going to do today is we're going to configure Beer 30 so that we can collect all of our dissolved oxygen data before, during, and after transfer. So the way in which we do that is we just go to our tools menu, and all of these things that we're setting up today are basically custom fields. So you can see I've already got my custom field for my fermentation vessel DO, and that's all ready to go. The other three numbers that I want to collect prior to transfer is I want to collect the bright beer tank dissolved oxygen from two places. I want to get it from the sample port, and then I want to get it from the CIP arm because CO2 tends to sit at the bottom of the tank because it's heavier than air. And then I also want to get a dissolved oxygen reading of the transfer line. So with those three numbers, it basically tells me that everything's been adequately purged prior to transfer. So let's go and set those up. So if I get DO BBT sample port, and the measurement category for that is a rate, and it's going to be ppb because that's what my C box does. And the module is going to be the filter module. And then it's going to ask me whether it's the start, in progress, or finish. So this is our baseline, so it's going to be at the start. I want to make sure that this field is mandatory so that my brewing team will go and collect that data prior to transfer. And then it's also marked active. So I'll go define custom field. And then as you can see, that field has now appeared. Let's go and add the other two fields. So I'm going to add DO BBT CIP arm, and that is a rate, and that's ppb, and that's the filter, start, required, define custom field. And the last one I want is the transfer line. So I'm going to go transfer line. That's going to be a rate, ppb, filter, start, required, define custom field. So now you can see I've got all of my custom fields configured here for the start of filtration. So if I go back to the filter module now, you'll see all four of my custom fields for dissolved oxygen now appear. Okay, so let's commence this filtration and make sure that we'll be acting like our brewing crew, and we're going to check that everything's all purged. So the CIP arm, let's say that's sitting at 50 ppb. The sample port's sitting at 28 ppb. That's a nice number. The DO of the fermentation vessel is sitting at 12, and the transfer line is sitting at 8. Right, so as you can see, all of our fields there have turned green, and it's ready for us to start our filter or our transfer. So if I hit start filter, we can now see that it's ready for us to complete this transfer. But I don't want to complete it just yet because you'll notice that we've got this tab at the top, the in progress filter, and it says no custom fields for in progress filter have been defined. So what I usually like to do during transfers is I actually like to collect the DO of the transfer line and the DO of the BBT at about 15-minute intervals during a centrifuge run or a transfer run. So let's set up those in progress custom fields. So again, I'll go back to tools. I'll click on define custom fields, and I'll go DO transfer line, and that is going to be a rate, and that is going to be ppb in the filter module, and it's going to be in progress, Now, I don't necessarily want to make this particular field required because I may actually want to collect some of the data more than once during the filter. I'll hit define custom field. Let's define the DO of the BBT, and that's going to go into rate, PPB, filter, in progress, define custom field. And you can see now I've got my two in progress custom fields all set up. So let's go back to the filter module. And you'll see now that when I go to a filter that's in progress, my two custom fields appear. And because they've got the little gray bar next to them, it basically means that they're not necessarily mandatory. So it means I can measure one or the other and away we go. So let's just put in a time for now and I'll record the in-filter data. So I'll just hit save there. So it's saved that. And as you can see, there's one record down here and I can continue to measure. So I'll go 35 and the transfer line's sitting at 8 ppb. So not a brilliant day, but it's doing okay. Hit save again. And as you can see, my numbers are starting to appear here where my in process dissolved oxygen numbers are appearing. So far, so good. Now, let's assume that this filter has finished and I want to get some numbers relating to dissolved oxygen after the filtration is complete. Now, normally there is a BBTDO field here, but it's not mandatory because not every brewery has a dissolved oxygen meter. But what I actually want to do is I actually want to make this field mandatory. But the best way to do that is to actually create a custom field called BBTDO and make that mandatory. So let's go set that up. So I go back to tools, define custom fields, and I'll go BBTDO. And this is a rate, and it's PPB, and it's filter, and it's the finish, and I'm going to set this to required. Define the custom field, and as you can see, my custom field is sitting right here. And then if I go back to the filter module, go to finish filter, and you'll notice now that I have a new custom field called BBTDO. So let's finish up this filter. So we'll just make it about now. What do we get there? We got, let's say we got 200 barrels. The temp's sitting at about 33 degrees. It's about 10 PSI and the fermenter is empty. Now, if I try and click complete filter, you'll see it says, please fill in this field, which is basically beer 30 asking me to make sure that I've got a DO reading of the BBT. So I'm just going to put in 15 ppb and I will complete the filter. And the filter's done. So if I now go back to the dashboard, you'll see that FV245 is now empty and BBT250 now has our Kiwi liquor and the filter's done. Now, the really cool thing is that this helps the head brewer find where DO ingress happens, because what I can actually do now is I can go into the batch history for Kiwi Liquor LB04, this particular batch here, and I can bring up the entire history of this particular batch. In Beer 30, you get very comprehensive batch history about literally everything that's happened. But I just want to go into the filter module and to see what happened here. Now, as you can see, we've got the ready to filter. When it was marked ready to filter, we can see that the filter is done and we can see our BBTDO right here at 15 ppb. And what we can actually see is we can also see our in progress changes to the DO. So I can see here it was 35 and 8, and in the first record I didn't put anything. And so basically what we can actually see is during the transfer, we can see when and where the DO ingress occurred, and also the operator, so that there's some accountability and you can actually get on top of any DO issues in your brewery. If you want to know more about how Beer 30 can help you minimize dissolved oxygen pickup in your brewery, leave the comment DO below and one of the Beer 30 crew will reach out to you and will run you through all of the amazing features of Beer 30. It is an amazing system that really helps you brew much better beer. Thanks for watching this Tech Tip Tuesday. I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.